Hello, in this video we'll talk about Open Managed Integration for VMware and how to update from one version to the next. There are three different ways to update OMIB. One is using the backup and restore method. The second way is to do an online upgrade. And the third option is to do an offline upgrade. We will go over each process specifically and then at the end provide an example of one. Backup and restore method. During this process, we'll be backing up the OMIBB database to a SIF or NFS location. The OMIBB database will contain information about the vCenter registration in OMIBB, as well as the host connection profiles, alerts customized in VMware, and inventory information collected during previous inventory jobs. In order to back up your database, you will need to log into the OMIBB Administration Console, click on the Backup and Restore button, and then click on Backup Now. For this example, I have previously configured a SIF share location that I will provide to OMIBB. I will need to put in the IP address or FQDN along with the network path and the credentials to log in. For security, you will be asked to provide an encryption password for the database. Once you have provided a password, you will need to click on the Backup button. You will receive a success or failure message. In this case, the database was backed up successfully to the location that I provided. You can confirm by going into that path and making sure that there is a tar.gc file which contains the database information. There will also be a tar.gz.sum file, which is essentially a signature check for the database. Once the database has been backed up, you will need to deploy a new instance of Open Managed Integration for VMware. You can do so by going back to your vCenter, clicking on the menu option and selecting VMs and templates. Once you're there, you will need to right-click on your data center and deploy a new VF. You will need to specify the location where you downloaded the OVF file from a drivers and downloads website for the Open Managed Integration appliance. For this example, we will not go over the process of deployment. Once your new instance of Open Managed Integration for VMware has been deployed, you will need to obtain the IP address information for the old appliance. You can do so by going into the OMIB Administration Console and clicking on Appliance Management. Once that information loads, under General Settings, you will see the appliance host name, the primary DNS IP address assigned, the IP address, and the subnet mask. You will need to copy over these details as they will need to be assigned to the new appliance. Once you have collected that data, go back to your vCenter and turn off that appliance. Once the appliance has been turned off, you will need to go into your new appliance, click on it, and launch the web console. At the prompt, go ahead and log in with the admin user. In the main menu options, click on Network Configuration, click on the Ethernet adapter wire connection 1, and select the settings icon. Once you're there, click on IPv4 settings, select the method from automatic to manual, and then provide the IP address that was assigned to the previous appliance. Ensure that the net mask and the gateway remain the same, as well as the DNS servers. For the search domain, type in the domain information for the local environment. Once you're there, click on the Save icon, and then close out the dialog box. Lastly, you will need to change the host name for the appliance to match the previous appliance's name. Once this step has been completed, you will need to restart this appliance. The process will take about 2 minutes to complete. Once the appliance has finished rebooting, you will need to log in with the administrator credentials again. Once the menu page loads up, confirm that the previously assigned settings remain throughout the restart. Then simply navigate to the IP address or FQDN information that you will see on that menu. In this example, I will be going to omib.sysman.local. After you verify the certificate warning, you will need to log in with your credentials. Next, once the vCenter registration information loads up, you will simply need to go to Backup and Restore, Restore Now, and then provide the CIFShare information where you backed up the database to. Once the OMIBB database has been successfully restored and the appliance has been restarted, you will need to log back in into your vCenter and confirm that you can see the OpenManage integration plugin. If you do not see this plugin, in most instances you will need to log out of vCenter and log back in. On other scenarios, you will need to restart the actual vSphere UI client, either by restarting just the client part or restarting the complete vCenter. Another way to verify that you can see the OMIBB plugin is to go into the menu option, selecting Administration, and then select Client Plugins. Sometimes it may take a minute or two for this information to update. This concludes the backup and restore scenario when deploying a new OBF template for OMIBB. As mentioned before, this process is strictly used in cases where we need to upgrade from a major release to a new major release, such as OMIBB 3.x to 4.x. Next, we will talk about the online upgrade process. This process is by far the simplest. You will need to log into your OMIBB appliance, click on Appliance Management, and select Update Virtual Appliance. You will be shown which version you currently have installed and the next available version. In order to complete this process, you will simply need to click on the Update link, which will start the download from the online update repository, and subsequently restart OMIBB. Once OMIBB has finished restarting, if the update was successful, you can do a quick verification by going into your vCenter, clicking on Menu, selecting the Administration link, selecting Client Plugins, and ensure that the new version of the plugin is listed. On some instances, it is necessary to update OpenManage integration for VMware using the offline method. In order to use this method, you will need to log into the OpenManage integration for VMware appliance, click on Appliance Management, and copy the link under Default Update Repository. On a system that does have access to the internet, you will need to go to that link path and download all the files that are provided for the OpenManage integration appliance. You can use a process such as wget in order to download all those files. There's no single download available. Once the files have been downloaded, you will need to create a HTTPS share, either on a Linux server or on a Windows IIS server. In this case, I have created an HTTPS share that mirrors the linux.dell.com website. It is important to note that the repository that you create needs to mirror exactly what the linux.dell.com repository looks like. Otherwise, the files will not be downloaded correctly into OMIBB. You can then copy the link for your local repository to your administration page under Appliance Management, and then click Apply. Once a repository has been successfully saved, you can then click on Update Virtual Appliance. You'll be able to see the current version, which is 5.0, and the available version, which is 5.1 on our offline repository, and then click on Update Now. Once the update process starts successfully, the appliance will restart, complete the upgrade process, and then you'll be able to see the latest version in vCenter.